What's good, Relocation Football League fans? It's your boy Smitty, and I got Bill, head coach of the Columbus Explorers, on the podcast here with me. I'm glad we were able to bring this back. We're going to be doing a recap of the first week of the RFL preseason, and then talk about the matchups for week 2, and then talk about, once again, another Madden giveaway and how you can win that. But Bill, glad to have you on the show, man.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Glad to be here.
Yeah, so first thing we're going to start out with, this shouldn't be too long of a show. And another thing I want to say before I get started, I'm not going to be able to see you guys' comments. I'm not going to be able to see it at the moment because I need to use my devices for running everything right now. So I will not be able to see you guys comment, but I will be taking questions. We will be taking questions at the end of the podcast and everything else. But starting out this
I
podcast.
got it pulled up here.
You said what? Oh, you got it pulled up?
I got it. Yeah, I got the chat pulled up.
Okay, cool. Okay, so in that case, check this for me. So if you guys can hear both me and Bill clearly, let us know, please, now in the chat.
Yeah, everybody let us know how you guys can hear us, because we were testing it before.
Yeah, see, I can see the number of people through Elgato, so I just can't see.
Do we even have anybody in here yet?
That says 2 people. Maybe we should have waited a little bit, but sometimes
let's just give it a couple
late.
minutes, I guess, and see if anybody floods in.
Yeah.
We got Jamie D here now. What's up, Jamie?
It's good, Jamie. Yeah, YouTube's usually late sending out those noties, man. I don't know why they do that.
Yeah, well, let me just get us a little link here quick.
All right.
Put us in that Discord here. Oh, man, I had a weird, Boston accent there for a minute. I don't know what was happening. And now the literally just came through. I just got it on my phone for that we're live.
Yeah, man. I knew it was YouTube, man. Always YouTube. So late with these noties. But so we got 5 people right now in here, and we might as well just go through it with it. I know more people's going to be rolling in now at 6. But appreciate all you guys rolling through. I can't see exactly who you are in particular. I know Bill, he said he's got the message, the live stream pulled up on his phone, so you will be able to see you guys' questions. We're probably not going to be able to take those, though, right now throughout this podcast. But once again, we will be taking you guys' questions at the end. And so figure out how you can win Madden or any other questions about the league, you can go ahead and ask that. But starting out this podcast, man, as you can see here, a lot of big topics. We're going to be covering the first week, recapping what happened in the RFL with the first 6 games in that first week, and then talking about the upcoming games for week 2 starting tomorrow. And I can't wait for that those games to go underway and get each other's opinions, predictions, things of that nature. And then we're going to just simply be talking about the Madden giveaway once again. But to start this out, man, let's get started by looking at what happened in week 1. So here's another look at the poster graphic of what we had with the scores on them for the final. And so first we start off breaking down the first game of the RFL season. And the first game was the San Antonio Marshals versus the Toronto Thunderbirds. Final score of that one was 0-17. What do you take away from this game here, Bill? I'm going to be asking you that for each one of these.
Yeah, so what I took away from that is, well, the Thunderbirds are still the Thunderbirds. You know, they played lights out on defense. Their front 7, it seems, it doesn't matter if it's the first, the second, the third team, they're going to create pressure. They just know how to do it, and I think it's going to be an important part for them moving forward since they lost Chapman, that front 7 being stout, which I don't think is going to be a problem. The other thing that I was curious about is on the Marshall side is, do we have a set starter? Is Agramonte the guy? Can Frazier knock him out? I'm really excited to see that for the season, and I think both of them showed flashes that they were able to do the job in that game, so it's going to be exciting to watch going forward.
Yeah, my takeaways from the game, man, like you said, the Thunderbirds look like the Thunderbirds. Even the backups may not have been able to dial up the exact same amount of pressure as the starters, which, of course, is the second team, it's not the starter guys. But, I mean, these guys were still dominant throughout this game. A little bit surprised that they only got 17 points, but once again, they didn't have their starters in. And I kind of, honestly, to give a plus for the Marshals, I really like the way their defense played in that game, the fact that they were able to hold them to 17 points. And I really feel that the Marshals, they have themselves a promising defense this year. And like you said, their offense, their quarterbacks, it might be a quarterback battle there, but we still got to see more out of that. Agramonte right now, as of now, I'm pretty sure is Coach Romo's guy, but we'll see in the future. But moving on to that.
And I got one thing to say yet about the Marshals, man. 2 words. Levi Mack. All right, that guy is going to help them with this year a lot.
Oh, yeah, he's a stud. He had a forced fumble in that game. I remember he was just all over the place throughout his time, man, playing in that one, man. But moving on to the next game, in that very same day, on that Thursday, we had the Conquistadors take down the Sentinels in the first preseason game on Twitch. The final score of that one was 31-15. What are your takeaways from this one?
And that was a weird game to me. I mean, I think we all sort of expected the Sentinels to come out a little bit more firepower, and I don't know if it was rust, just first game of the season, or if it had something to do with resting starters. I think that probably played into it, but the Conquistadors came out flying, and if the dude can stay healthy and if he keeps it up, I don't see how Rodnena stays on the sidelines too much longer if we get into the regular season, because that guy was balling on the game.
Oh yeah, he was definitely going off, and that's definitely one of I have to say an impact player within that game. He just took off 2 long rushing touchdowns, man, and he just made it look almost easy. And even going into that game, we talked with commentating over the game was Rob, and he was talking about how when he was over there in Dublin as the Celtic Tigers coach, he signed this guy, and he said, this guy was the truth. And the only thing that really made him not as effective was the fact that he was too injury prone. We didn't see him get injured throughout this week, like you said. If he could keep that up, don't see how he's going to be on the sideline too long. But my takeaway from that game was just Rodnena was dominating, and Conquistadors came out pretty good. So that's
for sure.
That's all I could take away from that game. It was still a good game by both parties right there. But moving on to the games that happened on Sunday, we had the Diablos take on the Tigers, and the Tigers were able to claw their way back and win that one with a final score of 31-24.
Yeah, that game was pretty. I think the game went a little bit more different than I thought. I think a few more people in the RFL community, we sort of tend to forget about the Tigers or sleep on the Tigers a little bit. We got mouths like me and Roland and Mark all in the same division, and the Tigers are there, and they're just there. But I don't think we can sleep on the Tigers anymore. They got a lot of good depth. They showed that they can play well against a solid opponent. And on the other side of it, it looks like the Diablos might be starting to make things work, maybe piecing things together. Last year, we know that they couldn't get it together, it seemed. They had all the talent, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't make it work. And that game, they had some really good drives and some glimpses that maybe they did finally get something clicking over in Mexico City. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was very surprised about the Tigers. I mean, one thing I can't be surprised of, though, since I had to call their games throughout all these years, is the fact that the Chicago Tigers, it doesn't matter what the overall of their players are, what the overall in general of their defense is, they're always going to seem to have themselves a solid defense. And I got to give a shout out to the 2 main pieces to that defense, and that's the middle linebacker, Pro Bowl player as well, Antoine Muldrow, just an 82 overall, but the impact that he brings on that defense is just serious, as well as the strong safety Nate Frank. And Nate Frank, he's just a hard-hitter impact player. Those 2 on defense, it just seem to be everywhere that the ball is, and I think that is the difference when you go up against this Tigers defense, man. If they lose those guys, I think that this defense plays a little bit different. But to be honest, I was very surprised. I like the way that Brady Pace came in. They got a good situation with their quarterbacks. We already seen Peyton Vanderbilt tear it up throwing the football, able to get some big gains over the Diablos, but then Pace came in, and you really did not see a change at all with the switch of quarterbacks, and that's a big reason why they're able to come back and win that game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it surprised me a little bit because, like I said, I tend to sleep on them. I know we shouldn't. I know you say it all the time, but it's hard not to when you got the other teams around. But yeah, you definitely got to keep your eye on them this year.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And so moving on to that next game that happened that day, we had the Condors versus the Crusaders in a shootout, the highest scoring game of the week. Final score 41-38. That game went into overtime. It was a crazy game. Man, what was your takeaways from this one?
I just think that game was so much more exciting than I think a lot than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be that high scoring, and that especially the end where the Condors were able to rally to send it to OT and get the win. That was amazing. That was awesome, and I just the Condors were just like that last year. They're just pesky. They weren't in the playoffs last year, but they they're always around. They're sort of like a thorn in the side of like everybody who plays them. And they showed it again last week against the Crusaders. And on the Crusaders side, I mean, like you said, they sort of had it seemed. Like for a while there, it looked like, okay, the Crusaders are going to win this week. But something happened, and then next thing you know, the Condors are coming back, and then they lost. And I think the Crusaders have something nice going. They just got to sort of find some more consistency there, so that way when they get up, they don't give it away at the end like that again, because that's going to lead to some heartbreak come season 5.
Yeah, so out of this game, man, for me, it was a lot of good and bad for both sides. The good that I saw with this was that the offenses look great. For one, talking about the Crusaders, it's always been a high-scoring offense, and they've got the players to make things happen. Ben Wakefield, you got Elijah Bentley, just a lot of weapons that can stretch the field, and, of course, Vondre Bryson toting the rock there. But the big issue that I got from both teams here in this one was simply because of the game being so high scoring, and that's defense. That's one thing that both of these teams have really struggled throughout their franchise is defense. They can score points, but their defense has always just never been up to the level or standard to help them win games. And I think if either of these teams had defenses in the past years or even this year, they can see themselves in the playoffs playing possibly for a relocation bowl. And so, I mean, that's a big difference, and just shows how important defense is in the RFL. But another thing to take away from the game, I mean, these guys were going back and forth. Condors started out really great. They had themselves a pretty good lead on the Crusaders. I remember I stepped out from the Twitch game. I came right back. Next thing I know, it was like 35 to like 21. And I'm like, oh, man, the Crusaders just came back. The Condors are out of this. And it looks like it's going to be a good win for Coach Bacigalupi. And then next thing I know, they kick a field goal. We thought the game was over. And the Condors were able to come back a little bit. The score after the field goal was 38 to 30. And then after they kicked the field goal with like 13 seconds left, Buki Johnson takes a kick return to the house for a touchdown. And we get a 2-point conversion that got converted by the Condors. And they take the game into overtime and ultimately win it. And so, I mean, I really, once again, great game with these two. But this season, what I would really like to see from both of these guys is just an improvement on defense. They got to do something on the defensive side of the ball.
Definitely, yeah.
So moving on to the next game, it was a big one. Everyone was kind of excited for this game. I think this was one of the most exciting games for the preseason, other than the Marshalls and the Thunderbirds game that happened. But the Dreadnoughts with Coach Frankie and the Cougars with Coach Roby, I mean, it didn't turn out to be what we expected it to be, but of course we knew that Coach Roby wasn't going to start his starters, and unfortunately, we've seen that, things didn't pan out that well. They ended up playing. Some guys got hurt, but good thing none of that stuck. But the Dreadnoughts ended up showing, some dominance here, and they ended up coming out of that with a 20-point deficit win, 26-6. What do you take away from that?
Well, yeah, just like you touched on, is like the Cougars from the get-go were sort of behind, just because we know that none of the starters were in. We saw some of them sort of trickle in later on for some sub packages and things like that, which I still don't know was planned or not, but luckily those injuries didn't stick. But yeah, I mean, once you saw that, okay, the Cougars are not starting, and then the Dreadnoughts came out full force, like we're going at you. Yeah, you sort of just knew that this was going to be a one-sided game, and that's nothing to take away from the Cougars. That should happen when it's 1s versus 2s and 3s. And then from the Dreadnought side, man, in that first quarter, I swear every other time there was a play call, it was Cam Jones with a catch, Cam Jones with a catch, Cam Jones for the catch. Like, if they continue to throw the ball to him this year, I mean, he's going to be in for a monster year, because he will seem to be target like 80% of the time out there on offense.
Oh yeah, and that's a big reason on why he made the Pro Bowl his rookie year last year. I mean, he's just just one of those freakish receivers, 6'7", 230 plus pounds. I mean, that's just, you don't get that every day, especially with 95 plus speed. I mean, that's just hard and ridiculous to cover. I like the fact that they're getting him the football. I mean, they tried to do that too a little bit last year, but I've seen a couple of times where they didn't target him. And like you said, that's a great way to show like that they may, really rely on him a lot more this year and actually get him the football more like he should. And he didn't really get to do too much. I think he was only on the field for like one drive, but that one drive he was definitely catching the rock, and it was almost like nobody can stop him. We already knew also that the defense, wasn't the starters, but it just shows just his dominance there on the field here in his second year. So, like you said,
you know what though, what I want to see, man, is I want to see these two go at it again with the starters, and I want to see Keanu Jones go up against him for a game and see how that goes, because that'd be pretty awesome to watch. Oh
yeah, I'm pretty sure, man, and that's another thing that builds excitement, which we'll get into for next week. Is Chicago, they're planning on starting their starters for week 2, and that's going to be big. First time we're going to be able to see these guys play on the field, especially the big signing in Keanu Jones, man. That's going to be great. But
definitely
moving on to the last game of the recap of what happened in week 1, man. Red Dragons looking like themselves back in season 2. Absolute pure dominance in this one. They just absolutely took it to the Austin Armadillos at home, and they shut it down in San Diego. Final score of that one was 43-10.
Yeah, I have my notes here in front of me, and I got one word next to that game, and it just says dominate, underlined 3 times by the Red Dragons, because they just started and they never stopped. That game was just, I don't even know. I honestly have nothing really to say too much about the Armadillos right now, because I was just too busy watching this Red Dragons team just do whatever they wanted to do. And part of the reason they look so good, and which I'm really excited to see, this week and really for the whole season, is I want to see if that performance that Anthony Savoy had carries over, because he looked phenomenal, I think. And one of the things that I really liked about what he did in this game is I didn't see too many 50, 60, 70-yard throws from him, but he took everything the defense gave him, and he held onto the ball, and he was smart, and it showed. And he played a lot better than a rookie in his first appearance normally plays, so I'm excited to see what he does.
Oh, yeah, and that's just that was just a great performance all around by that team. I think everyone on their team pulled their weight and did what they had to do on the field and showed their value on the team. And this Red Dragons defense pretty much had the same players on their defense since season 1, even back in season 2. And these guys are very ferocious. And, to see these guys kind of get back into a groove, that's great. We only seen the starters on the field for just about that first quarter. We still see some guys, slipping in on the later quarters and everything. But, this defense, if they can play like this throughout this year, it's going to be almost pretty much a front runner with no competition in the AFC that I feel. This defense is just one of a kind.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. Even though for preseason, that was an impressive performance.
And so moving on with that finished recap of the week 1 games and our opinions on them, I'm going to ask you, who were your top performers of this week?
One guy really stood out to me, and we talked about him just a while ago. Road Nana. I don't know what it is. He was just he looked more explosive than Damani Manuel in that game at times. Like, he was just I'm pretty sure he's a bigger back. So for having that game-breaking speed or game-breaking ability, that's amazing. And I really want to see what he can do throughout this preseason. Just the biggest question mark, is, like you said, can he stay healthy? Coach Roby last year with the Celtic Tigers, he said he loved the guy, but he got hurt, and that was it, and he couldn't use him. And now this year, first game back, and while it didn't stick, he won't miss any time, he was hurt. So, it's going to be, I hope that he can stay healthy, because I really think that he can push for some serious snap time on that team if he can stay on the field.
And my top performers, I had to say for this week, and even though it's top performers, I'm going to have to go with a whole group here for 2 teams. And it's simply the Red Dragons and Thunderbirds defense. They just absolutely showed their dominance this week. And I feel that is how we're going to see them perform in the regular season. These guys look like they're locked and loaded, ready to go. And it's going to be extremely tough for teams to be able to score on them. And I love the way that they performed, even the second team guys in the preseason, and that just shows you a lot of promise for them and a lot of help they're going to get on the defensive side of the ball to help their offense and to be within games. It's going to be tough to beat both of those teams, I feel, this year. And to go on to individual, Anthony Savoy, I really like the way he looked. Like you said, he was smart with the football, no turnovers, and this is what the Red Dragons wanted. They wanted a young quarterback, somebody who's going to be able to take over for Joey Luix, who has shown his inconsistency throughout the years with the San Diego Red Dragons. But one thing I'm going to say is, I still need to see more out of this kid. I mean, he did not get to play against starters, and for that, we still don't know how he's going to be able to perform at the RFL level when everything's, ready to go, when all the starters are out there and you're playing against the elite of the elite. Is he still going to be able to perform that well? And that's the big question. But I still have him as a top performer because he did do very well in his first game.
Yeah, I definitely want to see him as a starter, man. See him against the starters because, yeah, like you said, like he could completely flop against the starters for all we know. But yeah, that's something I really want to see.
And so going in, before we get into the week 2 matchups and break that down, I want to go ahead and show you guys, we want to go ahead and talk about injuries. Really wasn't much injuries at all. It was only 2 injuries so far this week in the Diablos. You can see right here, their cornerback, Miles McMichael. They lose him. They signed him from free agency, a 77 overall cornerback here. He's got broken ribs. It's going to sideline him for 4 weeks. The good thing is, he's going to at least be back for the majority of the regular season. Broken ribs, never nothing to play with. But at least he'll be back by week 2 of the regular season for the Diablos. They really needed this guy at the cornerback position. That was one area where they felt they were weak coming into season 5, and they really wanted McMichaels to be that guy that's going to help keep that defense solid. And so pretty tough loss there. And then we got for the Red Dragons, they lose their rookie linebacker. This was a high round draft pick for them, and Jack Higgins is going to be out, but good thing it's only going to be for the rest of the preseason. He'll be back week 1 of the regular season after a shoulder tear that he suffered. 83 overall rookie linebacker right there. So how you feeling about those injuries, man?
Well, I think that overall between the two, I think McMichael is actually a bigger problem for the team that he's on. For the Jack Higgins injury, that's more just about the fact that he's a rookie, and a lot of the times they use this preseason to sort of find themselves a little bit so that they're not so shocked when the regular season hits. So it's going to be interesting to see if he has any rust when he comes back in week 1 because he didn't get a chance to play and get acclimated with the game. But for McMichael, the Diablos are really thin at cornerback. I think he's the 4th corner, and there's nobody under him. So my thought on this is if they have to run with 3 corners for the rest of the preseason, that's going to tire those guys out. I mean, 90% of the time you have 3 corners on the field nowadays. So his injury could actually be a domino effect for the Diablos secondary. If they have to play too much, they get tired, they get fatigued. Next thing you know, somebody else gets hurt. They pull a hammy, something crazy happens. And now that one injury, even though it was just supposed to be for preseason, is leading to more injuries because there's just not a lot of depth there for them to make up for it. So I think the McMichael one is way more of a blow at this point for the preseason, just for the possibility of the domino effect after it.
I agree right there, man. Definitely some significant losses here for both teams. And so jumping into week 2, starting up tomorrow, man. Here are the games. We got the Gunners taking on the Condors at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And, of course, you guys know an hour later following that on Twitch, we have the next game with the Riverhogs versus the Bulldogs. First time we'll see both of those guys compete throughout the preseason at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. And then on YouTube, once again, starting the next day, not the next day, starting on Sunday, we've got the Thunderbirds taking on the Steamers. And that'll be on YouTube and on Twitch. We've got the Black Knights taking on the Dreadnoughts. And on Monday, we have the Shamrocks traveling to Portland to take on the Snowhawks. First time we'll be able to see them after their suspension. And their players will not be playing within that game. And so, it's going to be interesting to see that one. And then following that game on Twitch, we have the Cougars versus the Red Dragons. Big game right there. And then we have our premier games that will be showed on Saturday. And these games will be ran, at 2 different times. 1 o'clock games will be the Elks versus the Lancers, and the Pioneers versus the Aviators. And the 4 o'clock games on Saturday for the non-primetime games will be the Bulls versus the Voyagers. And our primetime, non-primetime game, our primetime premier game, I have to say, will be called by Jeff with the Monarchs versus the Marshals. Actually, I got this backwards. It's actually supposed to be the Pioneers and Aviators game that was going to be called by Jeff. So we'll have to switch this around. We can't do it, unfortunately, right now since the graphic's been posted out. But those are the games for week 2. And with that being shown, I want to ask you, and going down this list, who do you got for each of these games?
All right, so this one, I don't want to hear any crap from anybody either, by the way, if I'm wrong on this. This is preseason. I'm just throwing stuff out there, all right? And just want to get that out there right away. The first game, the Gunners versus the Condors, it's really going to come down to the Condors' defense. Like you said, the defense has sort of been the question of that team, and it showed again against the Crusaders. And if we're being honest, I feel like the Gunners can put up more points if that's how it's going to go than what the Crusaders did. So I'm going to have to take the Gunners in this one just because of the simple fact of Jabri Jackson is there. He's a game changer. So Gunners in the first game. Riverhogs and Bulldogs, I'm going to have to go with Portland. I know we got a couple of Portland people out there in the chat. I'm going to go Riverhogs in this one. I think the addition of Anthony Washington is going to really help out their secondary, and I think it's going to help them secure a couple of more wins than they did last year this season. Thunderbirds and Steamers, I got to go Thunderbirds. I'm sorry, Justin, but that Thunderbirds team, they just look mean. And I got to play them twice myself this year, so it's going to be fun. But until something changes, I don't see them losing so far in the preseason. Black Knights versus Dreadnoughts. I sort of had a toss-up on this one. I would like to say the Dreadnoughts, but I have a sneaky feeling that the Black Knights are gonna do something good this year. So I'm gonna take the Black Knights in this game. The Snowhawks and the Shamrocks game, with the Snowhawks players being suspended and the coach being suspended, I'm gonna have to go with the Shamrocks here. I think that they're gonna be able to pull it out. I believe I still have some kind of faith in Tom Wilson. I know some out there want to say that he's really too inconsistent and all that. I think he can do something, and I think he's gonna play better this year. So Shamrocks in that game. Cougars and Red Dragons was the toughest choice for me because I love Rob, man. I talk to him all the time, but that Red Dragons team looks really scary. Until I see the starters of the Cougars, I don't know if they're going to be able to match the firepower of the Red Dragons. So I'm going to have to take the Red Dragons for now. I could be completely wrong, and that's what it is. Elks versus Lancers. This one was another tough one for me. I think because of the fact that the Lancers are so stacked at the running back position that they're probably going to have a 90-something overall running back in there all game. I think that that's really going to matter in the second half, whether that's NO3 or the new guy, Rashawn Gary. So I think that's going to be a deciding factor in that game. Pioneers and Aviators. I'm going to go with the Aviators. I think they'll be able to put the Pioneers away. I don't think the Pioneers are there yet. They're not. They need another year or so. Bulls and Voyagers, I'm going to go Bulls. And then for the final game, I'm going to go Marshals for a bounce-back game after the loss to the Thunderbirds.
Good predictions there. I mean, as a commissioner, I'm not going to go with my predictions. Just wanted to put your predictions out there. And if you guys are watching in the chat, I mean, you guys can go ahead and post your predictions. Who you think is going to win this week throughout these games. It'll be interesting to look back and just to see who people thought were going to win, and then look back after the results to see, who was correct. But yeah, with that being said, I got to ask you, what out of these games that you see right here, what is the game you're going to be tuning in the most? What is the most interesting game to you this week?
I think the most interesting game to me, I have two of them in mind, okay? The first one is, but it's sort of it's an obvious one, is Cougars Red Dragons. I really want to see the Cougars starters, and I want to see if the Red Dragons can reciprocate what they did this past week. But the other game is I would like to see the Thunderbirds and Steamers, because I think the Steamers have been doing a lot of good things, and I want to see how much better they got this offseason, and I want to see if the Thunderbirds repeat what they did in Week 1. And so that's probably the game that I'm most excited to watch.
Yeah, those are some pretty interesting games. I'm going to go with the first one you said, though. Very interested to see, the Cougars and Red Dragons go at it. And the reason why is simply because of the top performers I picked from last week. And the thing is, I just want to see, I really think it'll be interesting to see if Coach Davis puts Savoy with the starters this week, and I think he should, simply because they're going to be splitting the same amount of time this week. All the starters will be playing for the first 2 quarters. The backups will be playing in the last 2. And so I feel like since they're going to be getting the same amount of time, the best way to test Savoy right now to see what he can do in the fire against those starters and see if he can play at that next level is to start him in this matchup against the Cougars this week. We already heard that Coach Roby is going to be using his starters this week, and so he's going to be going up against a really good starting defense. And so this is the best way I feel early on that you can that Coach Davis can test Anthony the Savoy to see if he is ready for the smoke, as we like to say. But yeah, that's going to be my matchup, my most interesting matchup of Week 2. And so with that, that's pretty much most of the podcast. Before we get into answering the questions, you guys already know about the giveaway, man. We're going to be giving away a copy of Madden 20 once again. We had some issues going. The guy who won it last time said he had Madden 20 already. Instead, we're going to hook him up with some RFL merchandise with a shirt. And so with that being said, we still got the Madden 20 game, and we're trying to give it out. So the way, if you want to win money, Madden 20 this time, the way you got to do it is you got to make a prediction on the schedules post on Instagram. So make sure you go on to Instagram, follow us on Instagram. Also make sure that you put your predictions for each of these games right here. So whoever you think is going to win the game, you don't need no score prediction. You just need to say, oh, I think the Gunners are going to win, or I think the Riverhawks are going to win. Whoever you think is going to win, whoever gets the most amount of correct games throughout this week, and they show up to claim those games at the games, they will win the copy of Madden 20. So make sure, if you want to win a copy of Madden 20, as you can see right here, RFL, the GOAT edition with Drake Crowell. Of course, we ain't going to be able to get that case to you, but if you want to get Madden 20, make sure you go ahead on that post, hit the like button, put your predictions down, enter yourself in for the Madden 20 giveaway, and the winner of that game will get Madden 20 ASAP, as soon as we can mail it out to you. But with that being said, now we are open for questions. I'm going to make sure I pull up my YouTube so that way I can see who's here and answer questions. But if you see anything, Bill, let me know.
Out there. Come on now. I saw a couple of you guys asking questions way early in the podcast, and we just couldn't jump in and answer them at that point. But you got them now. Send them in. We got, I don't know what Austin Briley's doing. He just put a pig out in the chat. We didn't even talk about anything with pigs. What's going on here? Oh, hold on, River Hogs. Yeah. I see what you're trying to do there, man. I don't know if I can give you that one, though.
Okay, Coach Anthony Washington asking, can we get a sliders video for the update? Well, I'm still testing the sliders, so no sliders will be released. No video on that will be released at all until the preseason is done, and I probably won't have it until about week 2 after I test the first week of the regular season with the actual starters in there. At the latest, maybe week 3. So expect update on the RFL sliders for CPU versus CPU gameplay at that time.
I see Anthony Mullis, I hope I said that right, asked if the RFL Season 5 is going to be interesting. I hope so. I think so. I think we got a lot of new faces, a lot of new coaches. We have some guys who changed teams, some new players that are brand new to the league. I think it's going to be a great season, so I wouldn't miss any of it if I were you.
Yeah, I think it's going to definitely shape up to be a great season. A lot of good teams got better. Some kind of stayed the same, and a lot of the teams that were at the lower bottom of the totem pole are, have gotten better and may make their case to, go to the postseason. So it's definitely going to be an interesting season. I think we're going to see a lot of upsets this season. Some interesting guys also making the playoffs. So will the Buffet boys make a difference on the Steamers? We're going to have to see, man. We'll get a first look at that, man, when you guys play this week.
Yeah, if you guys can do something against the Thunderbirds, then I'll say yes to that question if that's the case, but we'll see what happens.
Awesome Crocodile says, do you think the Shamrocks will make the playoffs? I think it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Like I said, it all comes down to Wilson. If Wilson, there's a reason they gave him that contract last year. If he can get back to playing the way he's supposed to play, then I don't see how they don't make the playoffs again. But it's not like they didn't make them. Like they were there. They just, really couldn't, make anything happen at that point. But Wilson gets back on track and they'll be fine.
So I see Mitch here, suspended coach right there, talk about what you think will win the NFC West, I guess, when he gets back. Well, to be honest, the first week of the schedule, I'm not saying it is kind of tough. You do play the Thunderbirds without your starters there, so that's going to be extremely tough for one of those games. You still are going to get the automatic wins from here on out. Those suspensions will give you automatic losses, but since we didn't come up with that rule at that time, you guys are safe there, so you should have a pretty good record. You got 2 games with the Elks too, so not sure how that's going to go, but without those starters, it's going to be extremely tough. And I feel there still is a possibility because of how good that Snowhawks team is, but it is going to be a challenge, and that's something I really can't give a straight answer to, whether or not if they're going to win that division.
Well, and then you forgot to mention one thing. Like, the starters finally get to come back, right? And Mitch gets to come back and coach, and then they got to face the dang Explorers. Like, when are they going to catch a break?
Yeah, that's never good.
We got question regarding our defense. This is for the Condors. How do you think we will fare throughout the league's offenses, knowing we only gave up 2 touchdowns to the Crusaders' offense minus Wakefield last week? That's a loaded question. Smitty, you want to take that one?
Yeah, well, so how do you think we'll fare through? To be honest, man, I think that it's going to be tough for you guys this season if the defense doesn't get right. And the reason why is because there's a lot of teams. We know you guys got some firepower, but I still can't all the way say that the Condors are like amongst the best elite offenses in the league. And because of that, if your defense is already not being able to shut down teams, that means it's going to be just about a shootout every week. And then with that being the case, especially in the NFC, it's a lot of good teams in the RFL and the NFC that have great offenses. And if you can't slow those guys down, I know you held them to two points, but that also shows some flaws in other to 2 scores. But that also shows flaws in other areas. If you only gave up 2 touchdowns offensively, then the rest of the touchdowns were in other areas. So that just shows a lot of flaws, honestly, there for the Condors that has to be fixed. But I'm pretty sure you guys have a pretty good chance at still making the postseason because of the players you have on offense. But that defense is really going to be what's going to give you guys that ticket.
Yeah, 'cause, they were only like a game out of the playoffs last year. It wasn't like they were like really down there. They were just sort of, they fell victim to the playing who won tiebreakers game, Yeah. So as long as you don't backpedal, you're going to have a shot at the playoffs. That's basically it. And I don't think really any of the teams throughout the entire RFL, I don't think any of them actually got worse this year. I think they either stayed the course or they added more firepower. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens this year.
Yeah, man. And to see Nathan saying, will we be getting an RFL video game? I wish we could create our own game, man. And, with the same amount of graphics and everything. Still love Madden, though. I'm going to be honest. We see some quirky things sometimes happen within the game, but, I love Madden. I think most of our community do. And I love the way it plays. I love the way it looks. And I think that, for the most part, even though we don't have our own game, this is great to have this experience on this video game.
Yeah, Madden gets a lot of flack, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like they don't bring it on themselves, because there are obviously things that can be fixed. But we see it every few years. A new team tries to make a game, and there's a reason that nobody makes them right now. It's a complicated process, and while we might want a lot of changes to happen to Madden, there is still nobody that can even touch Madden when they try to make a game. Like, I'm not trying to knock on these smaller places because I know it takes money, but let's be honest. Look at some of the games that came out this year. There is no way that anybody can say they even come close to Madden. So, I mean, there's things to be fixed, but Madden is still a great game at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, user-wise, I'd say it's a lot more issues, but when you play the game the way we do, you start to see the things that they do get right to an extent. You still see, of course, the things they do wrong, like the time management, some things like just not stopping the clock and things of that nature, the out of bounds not working, bad spotting. Those are smaller things, but it's a big difference compared to when you play it to compare to the way that we play it. So, I mean, to be honest, I like seeing it at its true form, the way that we see it on game days. And I see Coach Kozera asking about injuries. If somebody got out, well, to be honest, man, I can't even really answer too much of that question. I think that it'll affect any team who's got a star player that goes away. Honestly, I can't answer that with a top team or a top player, that if he got injured for the rest of the season, how bad it would affect that team, because it's a lot of good key players on these teams that if they lost them, it could be detrimental to them this season.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something that's very hard to say, but I see two answers after that from Roland. Honestly, either one of those answers would probably work. LC3, of course, because not trying to knock your backup quarterback, Mark, but Hand didn't exactly play the greatest in the first game, so unless we see something a little bit more from him this preseason, LC3 goes down, and I don't know, man. Like, I know the defense is good, but it's going to be tough to win without a quarterback. And Roland also said CJ. Yeah, I mean, of course, anytime a very high overall player like that gets out, for a long period of time, it's not good, but honestly, I think that my team would be worse off if Latavian Worrell, or Bradley Atagwe went down for too long. Maybe not Atagwe so much, because I do have some guys behind him, but I think the quarterback is really the biggest thing. It sucks to lose a big-time playmaker, but a good quarterback can usually at least keep the offense moving without the best player on the field. So, like Smitty said, it's hard to make that kind of prediction, because really, any one of these teams, you take their top player out, it's going to affect them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And I see Coach Roby asking, once again, the same question, if the Snowhawks make the postseason. And he said, do you think this team can win a wild card and still compete for I do think they can, once again, because, they're going to be out for half the season. Of course, the starters, and no coach there as well. But, I mean, they got Joseph Gilly, they got Karis Curry, they got Keelan Linton, all within the top 10 overall rated players offensively, coming back, and then guys on defense, the rookies that's not going to be able to play this year. When all those guys come back together, they could very well win the rest of their games throughout the season, because of how great they are. It all depends also on the coaching, on if they can get themselves adjusted within time to be able to, get them to have that success, because it is going to be tough to be able to make sure that you game plan coming back middle of the season that way. But I do think this is a team that still has a shot of going to the wild card and possibly, making a run for the Real Bowl. Not having any injuries either, to those guys, and having them late in the middle to the end of the season, that could be big.
Yeah, I sort of piggyback off of that. I think a lot of what it's going to, for the Snowhawks, what's going to decide how their last half of the season goes, of course, is going to be how that first half of the season goes. Because if those backups can come out the first 8 weeks and they can make enough plays to at least keep them at 500, 4-4, then they very well could have no problem getting to the postseason. But if they come out and they lay an egg, or something happens and they just can't win a game, on top of it putting them behind in the record race, I also have a feeling it might affect some of the players once they come back. The momentum, the low momentum, low morale around the locker room because of the losing. So it's really going to be dictated based off how those first 8 games go, because it could have more effect than just what their record is, internally, and how those guys play once they do make it back.
Yeah. And I see also Crocodile asking, which division in each conference do you think is the toughest? And to be honest, thinking about looking at that, I'd have to say in the AFC, the toughest division to me, it looks like to me I'd have to go with the North with the Cougars, the Huskies, the Bulls, and the Aviators. I mean, to be honest, in that conference, all the divisions are just about balanced to me. Or some guys just seem like they should be the front runner, just going to win it already. We can tell, but I guess that if I had to choose, that would probably be my toughest division in the AFC. And in the NFC, I'm going to have to go with the North again with the Barons, Explorers, Thunderbirds. You got the Tigers in there. Guys overlook them though too. That's a dangerous team. So I have to say those are two divisions within each conference that I think are the toughest.
And we got Austin here with who do you guys predict to win the AFC West?
Well, to be honest, man, I think it's a clear run. I mean, but still, we got to see. But the Red Dragons should just about own that division. If they play like they keep playing, I don't see any other team being able to compete with them. I know that the Voyagers are a sneaky team from time to time, but in the Riverhawks are a good team too. But the way that I've seen the Red Dragons play, man, and if they are anything like how they were back in Season 2 when they won it all, I don't think there's a single team in that division that's going to be able to compete with those guys.
Hello? Are you there, Smitty?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right, you sort of cut out there for a second. I was like, what just happened?
No, I'm here.
All right. I got to agree with you there. I think it's the Red Dragons division to lose. But if another team aside from the Red Dragons were to take it, I do believe it would be the Riverhogs. I think the Riverhogs are right now the favorite to be number 2 behind the Red Dragons. But if for some reason they falter, I don't see how it's anybody but the Red Dragons. The Pioneers are just not there yet. And I think the Voyagers have some identity issues to work out before they can start really being too much of a contender.
Yeah, and when you look at both teams' all-time records, those two, I mean, they got the same exact all-time record with a 41-23 record all-time throughout their franchise history. So those are two of the top, upper echelon teams in the RFL. But the Red Dragons looking pretty scary this year, and that also answers the question to Anthony Washington asking, what's the highest overall team in the league, and that is the Red Dragons. They're up to an 89 team overall right now, and I think that's going to get possibly higher throughout this season. So that's scary.
Yeah, that's crazy how the amount of talent that's on that team. That's going to be that's like we've been saying with this whole podcast. That team is right now it's stacked. It's really theirs to lose if they can stay the course and stay healthy. I don't see how the Red Dragons aren't the number 1 seed in the AFC heading into the postseason. So that's yeah.
I see a question from Maverick Hansen saying, would St. Louis or Las Vegas get a team in the RFL in the future? They might, man. We might that might be a possibility. But so far most of these teams, they are deeply rooted in their cities right now. But I do see a possibility maybe of a change for a team like the Pioneers, but still I doubt that'll be anytime soon, to be honest.
Oh, and just want to make sure that you saw right before that, Mitchie had a question. Do you think we will have a repeat champ this season? I think no. I don't think so. I think there's a brand new champion this year. I think Roland said something to that effect earlier. I just wasn't sure if it was a question or not, but I think that there's this year, whoever wins the Reload Bowl, I think is going to be a brand new team. I don't think it's going to be the Thunderbirds. I don't think it's going to be the Huskies. I think it's going to be somebody brand new. I don't know who. I have no idea, but I just think it's about time now with this offseason where all these great players have come in and we have all these new coaches. I think somebody's going to put it together and we're going to have a new champion this year.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, but I'm also not going to rule that out because I honestly feel like, once again, when you talk about the Red Dragons, if they are dominant, and the Thunderbirds, if they're dominant and they are top seeds and they just crush it in the playoffs, we could see a Thunderbirds Red Dragons matchup, and it is going to be guaranteed that we're going to have a repeat champion. But like I said, I still kind of feel that might not happen, but it is a chance.
Yeah. And then Maverick had, or no, wrong question. Sacramento Condors has a good one. Who do you guys think will take home the Rookie of the Year award this year? That's a tough one. I have no idea.
To be honest, man, who I think will take that one may be Anthony Savoy if he gets to start. If he gets to start, I don't see, and he balls out like how we seen him in the first season. If he's actually that good against starters and he's able to take the Red Dragons to the postseason, which they haven't been to since season 2 when they won it all. I mean, they're 3-0 playoff record. He gets those guys back there, and I don't think there's anybody else that's going to be able to challenge him for that spot, to be honest. And to be honest, I can't even think of someone else that is, going to be able to take that spot.
Yeah. And Roland, we don't agree on a whole lot of stuff, but I'll agree with you there. Too bad he's got to play us. I'm assuming you're talking about the Thunderbirds, and that dang right, that's what's going to happen. We're going to do something. I don't think you're going to be the new champ, as I see you pointing yourself in the chat. I mean, crazier things have happened in this world, man. You need to cool your head a little bit. Give yourself at least a season. Come on now.
Well, man, I always feel like, hey, if he feels like he's a champ, let him talk, man. Let him feel like he's the champ. I'm pretty sure he's gonna wear his losses like a champ. You know what I mean? He might have a terrible season.
I just hope that's the case, man. I hope he takes his losses just as well as he takes that smack talk he's got all off season. That's gonna be the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He's definitely going to hear it if his team isn't successful this season. I already know. Me and him had a talk too about that. But I'm pretty sure that like I said, I think we're going to see some good things out of the Barons this year. Hopefully, they'll have a better record than 8-8 this year. If he at least does that, that's a win in my book for this year.
Hey, if they go 8-8 again this year, the one thing you can say is those guys are consistent, man. They are consistent. And I see Austin here says, so say we went off this season and topped off the Diablos, would that be a huge surprise? Dude, that would be such a big surprise, man. If you beat the Diablos this season, that would be the biggest surprise ever.
Yeah, and the reason why is because you guys aren't in the same conference. So, the Riverhawks will not be able to play the Diablos. The only way they'll be able to play them is if they both go to the relocation bowl.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be a really big surprise, man. I hope the best for that outcome for you. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Well, what's up, Chiz? We got the defending champ in the house now.
Yeah.
And there goes Mark with his little, I don't know what kind of game Mark likes to play, coming in last. Okay. Yeah. I'm not gonna give you that, Mark. I'm sorry, man. Just stop it. Just stop.
Trying to be humble, that's all.
Yeah, there's a difference between being humble and being a little out there. That's a little out there.
Yeah, but I guess that's it for the questions, man. So far, I think we have, close to an hour so far the stream has been. And so it was a good first stream back here with the podcast. I see some more influx of questions coming still. Okay, so let's see if we got anything. You just threw that in. Been here all night.
Okay. No, Austin meant the Red Dragons. Yeah, that still would be. That would be actually a bigger surprise than if you beat the Diablos in the regular season.
Oh yeah, that would definitely be a big surprise. You can do that.
Rob marking those sympathy cards. Who will lead the league in rushing? Okay, this will be the last question. Who will lead the league in rushing? What do you think, Smitty?
That's going to be tough, but to be honest, I've thought this since looking at the rosters after we made them this season. And to be honest, I think it's going to be the guy who's led the league in rushing for most of every season, for the most times out of any back in the RFL. And I think that's going to be Trey Worsley for the Celtic Tigers. I think this guy's an absolute monster. They love running him with the football, and he's got that X factor, man. And I don't think anybody's going to really be able to mess with him too much this year. And I think he's definitely going to be over 1,000 plus. He had himself a little, bit of a shaky year last year, but he still rushed for over 1,000 yards. But I really feel that he might be the best back this year to lead the league. But
So and my guess on that is more of a self I don't even know how to word it, but basically what I'm trying to say is, if I can keep Bradley Ottagwe from getting hurt again, because I think he's going to have a little bit more work this year. We'll see. Take notes, guys. I know you, Mark and Roland, are in here. I think he'd have a shot at being right up there with anybody else. He's looked really good so far. It's just if he can stay healthy. Dude's electric if he stays healthy, but that's a big if at this point.
Yeah, and I see a paid gang E just to answer this last question. He says, "What do you think about Tavion Hall?" I think Tavion Hall is definitely going to have himself a good year, his first year in the league. He very well could lead the league in rushing. He very well could.
I forgot all about that. My bad, Tavion. I completely forgot about him. Yeah, he'll be up there as long as the Desperados are good.
Yeah, but I still feel like Trey Worsley, because of the team that he's on and just the way that he's always been consistent, I feel that he might be that top guy this year. But very well, Tavion could be that guy. But yeah, that's gonna do it here tonight. And we're just gonna close out this live stream. Appreciate all you guys coming through. Make sure, if you haven't already, make sure you leave a like if you haven't on this video. Subscribe if you haven't also, and we'll try to keep these up heading into this the season for each week, to at least get you guys knowing what's going on around the league and a good recap after every week. But that's going to do it here for me and Bill tonight, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Guys, have a good night.